Дискутировать мне помогут в этом Зенитулин Тимур.
And I'll be supported by Timur Zelitullin, Deputy Director General in Ankara Assistance, Konstantin Lepatkin, CISO in Sales, Vyacheslav Tupikov, CISO in Rostelecom Solar, Andrei Abashev, Head of Methodology and Control in Nor Nickel, and Alexander Rechets, Head of Methodology and Control of Security in Rumbler. Hello, colleagues. Thanks for making it here. Well, to begin with, today, businesses cannot work on their own. They need some external support, and this generates the cloud services, development, outsourcing companies, and all these guys have access to our data, to our infrastructure. And it's okay from the point of view of business. It can save some money, but we have information security risks, like data leakage, unauthorized access, not satisfying the requirements of InfoSec. So we'd like to consider the balance between trust and control, how to minimize the risks and work with the contractor in such a way that it shouldn't become a bureaucratic nightmare for your contractor. These issues touch upon many companies. So the first question, how to assess the level of InfoSec with the contractor before you start the engagement, and how to maintain this requirements throughout your joint project. How can you do it? No way you can do it.
Well, we
have kind of the short and the long answers. Well, the short things you can do. Well, just thank you for coming here on a Saturday. So you kind of some takeaways. So you can just OSINT them to see whether there have been any leakages, what kind of domains they have, whom they worked with. You don't need some crawlers for this. Well, you can use census, for instance, to kind of look at them. We, as security guys, we should remember the due diligence and due care principles, whatever the question is. So before we start our engagement, we should look at the digital footprint. Okay, NDAs and various agreements. Yeah, you can OSINT the contractor if this is a large contractor, but if this is a small contractor, maybe you have nothing to OSINT there. And sometimes you can only take some technical measures, and you can also use some kind of human level methods. You might talk to people. If InfoSec experts tell you, well, please give us your guy who is responsible for this, and we'll just talk to him. When you talk to the guy, it makes clear to you, without any OSINT, this is the most straightforward measure. So if you don't kind of go deep in the documents or agreements, because they are there and people need them, for sure you may formalize the requirements. It's important to do it and have a good approach to this, but the quickest and simplest way to understand whom you are dealing with is to communicate with them. So we have kind of non-technical things here too. And again, well, they might be good, maybe you trust them, but still you should be ready. And apart from trust, you should have some technical kind of systems to support you. Yeah, trust but verify, sure. And these are the two contractors, by the way. Yeah, we are both contractors and customers. Okay, let's invite Andrei and Alexander, the customers. Okay, I'll start with a classic approach. Well,
мое направление, поэтому надо затронуть. Понятно, есть классические.
So we understand we have this classical NDA. This is fine. You can sign an NDA before you start a cooperation. No problem with that. So you might have an NDA before you have an agreement. And the next stage, you might sign the information security agreement. There we can have some specific requirements and so on. Okay. The question is before we start cooperation. So papers might come later. So I would agree with the colleagues. Well, OSINT
Мы этим
is helpful here.
занимаемся. У нас есть подрядчик.
That's what we also do. We have a contractor doing it,
Своими
and we can do it on our own. This is quite straightforward.
И тут я хочу тоже сказать, что
I'd like to say that overall,
цифровой след есть у всех организаций.
everybody has a digital footprint. We had some cases like we have a solution the business likes, a CRM solution, and it's developed by an individual entrepreneur or a sole incorporated guy. So it's a small startup, and the digital footprint is small.
При вот таком
Nevertheless, if you analyze it like that, if you look into the open sources,
такие интересные вещи,
sometimes some interesting things pop up.
конкретный
So we have a specific example.
небольшого
We're
предпринимателя.
looking into one of these entrepreneurs with a CRM, and in one of the GitHub repositories, we found a specialized script to brute force their personal accounts of this service. Then turned out that they don't have a two-factor authentication system. He cannot explain how the script works, so he doesn't understand how it works. We kind of give him hints that maybe you could reduce the number of kind of attempts and so on and so forth, but the guy doesn't have any understanding that some simple measures might be taken to kind of protect yourself. And we kind of saw that this service may become a target of wrongdoers, so we can see some direct risks here.
Ну, я, наверное, покажусь душным.
Okay, I'll be boring.
Почему такой фокус на Асинте?
I don't know why you are focusing on OSINT. The question was like that: how to determine the level of maturity of InfoSec? Well, the first option. I think everybody uses it to some extent. Well, before you start working together, so we have the standard procedures, and you can set a list of requirements for the contractor. So this is even before you start working. So you obtain the information on how these requirements are implemented, and this lets us conclude whether it's fine or not. You can also hire an auditor. It doesn't really matter who does it. Okay, we can do it if we want to check the contractor, or the contractor may pay an auditor,
Разрабатывают отчет.
and they develop a report, and there they describe their current state, and then they can share this with all their clients. And we have the third option. If we have enough strength and potential, and if we have enough resources, we run this analysis on our own. We draw a list of questions and criteria. We send it to the contractor. We receive a report on how they satisfy this criteria. We look at the evidence and so on and so forth.
Тут еще вторая часть вопроса.
We have the second part to the question:
Требований на
how to maintain the requirements are satisfied.
информационной безопасности,
I
которая
mean, how to maintain this
вы как заказчик
level of compliance. So I understand that you're the customer, so you control this and so on. Okay, may I add to this, to the previous part of the question? Well, sure, you might run audits, but quite often the business requirements are different, and they may differ a lot. And sometimes some of these guys have never heard about InfoSec. Well, sometimes business wants this system. There are some numbers of them, and none of them satisfies the requirements. You start talking to them, and you tell them, here are the methods. So they have an app. They have coded them. Have you dealt with security? No. We deal with the app, and the app does this and that. And sometimes when you set this requirement, when you force the guys go through the audit, we kind of exclude them all. And the business guys will tell us, okay, guys, the InfoSec guys have thrown the wrench. No, we're not throwing the wrench. We just want to understand the level of maturity. Okay, if we add it to the technical requirements, we'll have no offers. Okay, the task is to assess level of maturity. So we have some participants in the procedure. We understand who is better, who is worse, what the price is. Then we start looking for the right balance. I either we'll invite the expensive and
что-то делать на своей
secure guys or the cheap guys, but then we'll have to do something on our end. Anyway, we'll have to do something on your end, since, well, whatever your contractor does in terms of InfoSec, the risk of third-party compromise will be there anyway, and you'll have to manage it. That's great. I couldn't agree more. So I understand it's nice to find fault with contractors. So I would start assessing the overall maturity with ourselves. So we should look at our own responsibility. So before you start interacting with someone, have you thought about the way this interaction is going to work out? Where would they go? Will they have the SSH key or not? Do you have a two-factor authentication or not? Do you have monitoring? So if you talk about primary kind of vectors, maybe you should say that you shouldn't see the iGrok or scanner launched from the contractor. Well, we understand this is important for the contractor, but it's an important question for you. How did you allow this? We should also remember about your own responsibility. Yeah, going back to what we can kind of check.
Перейдем к следующему вопросу.
Okay, let's proceed. What are the mechanisms to control the access of the contractors to the corporate resources, which you could call the most effective ones? We've been talking about the contractors for the last 2 to 3 years, and within this time, I think we have developed some tools which work and which let us run this control. So what would you add to this list? Do we have enough money?
Вот разные уровень компании.
It depends.
Не, ну если вариант дорогого решения.
Well, if you want an expensive solution, then you can have some SPAMs, PAMs to control this. You can kind of keep track of this and look at this. You have little money, you can have the jump host with some auditor, with some security, and this will generate some security and control for you. Okay. No. It can be done for free. So you do the hardening on tier ID, you add the Sysmon audit D for free, two-factor. Okay, take TLTP and use it for that. Well, the basic hardening methodology, which is well described, so they will really kind of make difficult the development of the primary vector of penetration. Yeah, I'm here to support Timur.
Надо выстраивать у себя внутри.
We should build the processes in such a way, like access control and monitoring, that you don't need to look for some expensive solutions. We understand that, okay, jump host is for free. We want PAM because it's nice to kind of watch cartoons there. It used to be fun, but then when the session of the developers took, 10 hours, you're not going to kind of watch these nuances for 10 hours. Well, I think we should start with the basics. Do you have access control, monitoring, and audit? If all of that is there, if you can digest it well, then this is going to be enough.
Константин.
Konstantin?
Я бы еще, как в прошлом бывший сетевик, то...
Well, I'm also a network guy,
для
so I would say that for the contractors, you need a segment to be allocated. So every customer
наверное, сегментацию
should determine some segmentation
принципа
and to follow the principle of the lowest privileges. And I will support my colleagues in terms of access control.
правила по предоставлению и отзыву прав.
So we should have some rules to grant and cancel privileges.
Давайте пофантазирую. Да, вот тут рассказывали про средства защиты.
Okay, they talked about some ISS and control
Каждый,
systems.
когда мы начинаем загонять
So
подряд,
when we start kind of covering
растет. На моей памяти был кейс.
our contractors by ISS, the price goes up. I remember the cost was 1 million, but then it became 10 million following the ISAC processing of the agreement. Okay, can we say, okay, guys, you don't share the passwords, you should have an antivirus, you just connect to us and you just work like that. Would you be ready to do it like that?
Ну вот это подключаешься, если он же...
Okay, you connect, but this is not free, right? This should be like a VDI. No, not VDI. Here is the VPN. So you can come to the office, we can give you the RDP.
Тимур аж плохо стал.
I see that Timur has nearly fainted when he heard this. Well, I mean some minimalistic kind of measures. Okay, guys, we are partners, right? I trust you. You don't make it hard for me. So be kind of realistic and reasonable. Okay, Vita, do we have many partners like that in PT?
Я модерирую.
Okay, no, I'm the moderator. Okay, we understand. This is just
терминами определить.
for example, right? I think we should agree upon some terms and conditions. So we have a contractor like a designer, a web designer, or a presentation designer. So they have no infrastructure. They sometimes don't have laptops. Like, again,
Вам придется в это вложиться.
in any way, you'll have to invest into this, and this will be incremental to the cost. So this will cost some money, maybe not rubles for licenses, but maybe it will cost you in terms of the time your staff will spend on this. Okay, what will you have to invest in if this is a web designer? I mean, he'll have to go to you through some controller. Okay, if he brings the result on a memory stick, okay, the memory stick should be also somehow tested, but we already have these systems, right? Okay. So we have business value and we want InfoSec wishes. And the matter of kind of cost, 1 million grew to 10 million. Frankly speaking, I can't believe this. And then it was kind of done. Well,
Ну, это мое право не верить.
okay, I don't believe it. You can't take this right from me. I think the people will tell us that, okay, this is too much. We shouldn't pay 10 million for this if the cost is 1 million. Look for other options. And one of the options would be to minimize the communication component of this, like not remote office. Okay, if you want to make this million, come to our office, work here, use our computers. You might have like a segment, a singled out segment in our machines. Options are there, just look for this. Yeah, it's hard to disagree with you. We are talking about risk management too. You might manage the risks too, so you can kind of accept some risk, you try to minimize it somewhere. Okay.
Мониторинг аудита.
What are the monitoring on audit tools which could be used to make sure that the contractor is in line with the requirements? EDL, DRP, how do you say that we install the corporate antivirus will control whatever you do?
Или вот все, что на стороне подрядчика.
Or everything on the kind of contractor's side will be their responsibility, and you don't deal with it. And we start kind of looking at this, starting with your end of the VPN. Well, on one hand, we want kind of impose the ISS on the contractor, and how can you do it in terms of technologies? We understand that Positive has it for free. Yeah, we understand. But if other companies want to follow this journey, they face this license agreement issue. Okay, this is a third-party company. We can't do it like that. We had a company. The contractor wanted a lot. They said, we are analysts. We cannot tell you what we want. Just let us into this business system, show us data, hopefully everything. And everything is kind of burning. And the CEO is giving them the green light. Well, in this case, those who took part in the audit, we just hired these guys, gave them the corporate laptops, and they worked under all our systems. So they got all the ISS on our machines. So these were our computers, not theirs.
Вы рассматривали такой вариант, что ноутбук, который вы им выдали,
Okay, the laptop you give them with all the ISS, so they'll just bring it to the service, they'll do the RDP, and the company will kind of go through it. But we control it. We control the audit, so everything what is happening there. So it's in line with our profile. So we have hardening, and we even had some surveillance. Okay, you guys, you have everything. Who has EDR here in the room? Would you raise your hand? You mean EDR? Well,
Понимаешь? Ну, это далеко не у всех.
okay, not everybody, yeah, to say the least. This is also difficult. Okay, and how do customers do it? You know, I'm a director of a commercial SOC. I can kind of tell you what can be done. Okay, we do it like you do it. We use the SOC for this.
Константин, а вы как-то контролируете?
Konstantin, what about you? How do you control your contractors?
Так сказал, мы довольно
Well, I would say we are quite flexible
и
in dealing with our contractors,
бывают разные.
and things differ.
Примеров серьезных
One of the examples we recently had,
бухгалтерию на аутсорс
okay, we outsource accounting.
без айтишников.
The company has no IT guys, only women, about 10 girls. So they do it right,
У нас уже сейчас
impeccably. But for us, it's Windows 10 or 11, like everywhere. But they still use Windows 7, which is not supported and has a flood of vulnerabilities, and there are no updates.
договорились
So we agreed. We
собственно, со всеми нашими.
kind of give them our
Вот это один из кейсов.
computers with the EDRs and all the agents. Well, we had another situation.
У коллег есть определенный уровень зрелости.
Colleagues have some maturity, they have some hygienic factors in place,
Удаленный доступ настраивается таким,
and we just set up the remote access in such a way that the profile is attached
конкретному хосту.
to a specific host,
Ну, подрядчик ходит только с...
and the contractor uses only this device, and that's it.
Наверное, такая история.
Вот ты сказал, что там не ко всем
You mentioned that
меняете
you don't apply too many kind of requirements to all contractors. Sometimes you have some more straightforward kind of agreements that you don't get hacked, and then we'll kind of work together. Yeah, it would be a good approach. Yeah.
Было бы удобно, например,
Yeah, it would be nice if at the VPN level you could have some compliance. Okay, if you want to connect to us,
на рабочем
then your workstation should have an antivirus with updated signatures, and then, okay, you're welcome. Yeah, sure.
Там по наличию
We have
EDR-ов,
the chill checks. We can see the number of EDRs, the launch of antivirus software, and we can use some other criteria. Yeah, it would be great.
То есть вы не загоняете подрядчика.
Okay, you don't kind of impose too many InfoSec requirements on the contractor. You give them the bare minimum, and then you connect and you work. And you haven't had any negative precedents. No, we haven't. And we
не выстроены.
haven't established any checks with the contractors. Okay, in terms of imposing requirements on the contractors, I support this. Well, I'm a contractor, and I'm a licensed kind of company, and many kind of requirements are imposed on me, but some IT companies and so on don't have those requirements. So when we talk about the technical kind of systems, I think that this issue is more or less resolved, because Russia, within the last 2 to 3 years, well, in terms of detection, monitoring, and response, so we have generated a lot of experience, and this is shown by the International Cyber Polygon. I think we are more focused on the operational kind of features, well, and this may be in the regulatory field too.
Мне кажется, вопрос больше...
Well, I believe so. This is more kind of organizational than technical. I hope you'll agree with me.
Предыдущего спикера.
Okay, I'd like to add a few things.
Практика, как
I'd like to share some experience, how
в международном рынке решаются подобные.
they do it internationally. So you have a large company and you kind of outsource accounting. A big international company undergoes audit inspections, financial kind of reporting audits, and like Sarbanes-Oxley. And when they run their audits, they identify the outsourced business processes, and this is one of the key processes. This is generating financial reports and has to be somehow verified. So you hired the auditor. They cannot go to the contractor. So how do they solve this problem in the West? So they ask the contractor to provide the report on the effectiveness of the control over the services they
оказывают
provide
компании.
to your company,
Аудитор полагает
and your auditor will rely on that. And this report
по международным стандартам.
follows the international standards. We have a number of them, and it's a big thing. It starts with some manual
Cyber security, потому что cyber он
input and goes all the way to cyber security, because cyber risks are there in terms of financial reporting. And for me, it's a little bit strange to say that it is not taken off in Russia. And we understand that the service organizations obviously are developed so they're developed to work for the market, not just for one company. So why don't they hire a good independent auditor so that the guy should check not only the technical stuff, but rather run a full-fledged inspection of the whole thing, so that they perform the control measures throughout the year, they have their ISS in place, they have their policy they don't violate, and if they have any incidents, they are timely identified and rectified, and say they are in touch with the public authorities, or they have other counterparties to help them mitigate the issues. So for them, this will be a one-time audit, and all the third parties they supply will receive this report, and this gives you trust.
Можно реальности добавить?
Okay, may I add some kind of realistic things here? Yeah, this is a cool thing, but it works only in the regulated fields. Well, financial guys, they have SOX, medical guys, they have HIPAA, but if we look at InfoSec regulatory framework, it lags behind, and our contractors vary. And if we don't have any regulators, like this event was organized by an event agency, what kind of regulator is going to deal with event agencies? Okay, SOX, this is not for finance, this is for financial reporting. So any company which is traded at the American Stock Exchange should be in line with these requirements. The Moscow Exchange, the Chinese Exchange, and so on, they also have these requirements. And I think that the event guys organizing this, they are opposite technologies. So we have this, you have kind of stakeholders here who want to make it right here in terms of this event. Okay, let me share with you an anecdote. We went to Tula with the response team. Okay, what was going on? So it was a big event. So some guy used to go to the armed forces with another guy, and this guy in Tula has kind of a factory making makeup. Then the other guy bought some van. Then he was joined by another uncle, and they have a fleet of cars. So they were growing. So the fleet has some ERP, and the other guy represents a logistical company. To synchronize the logistics in terms of the warehouses, they just ask the 1C guys, they have a DB server, this guy goes to the server, so no control, no regulations. They have never heard about this. Nobody talked to them about this. So, well, and all of this was encrypted, sure. And we understand that, well, since we understand the penetration of digital technology today, so the second and third scale, you can imagine that some kind of the stores didn't get some of the supplies, and so on and so forth. But what should you do to these two guys? You know, one has a factory, the other one has a set of events. For them, SOCs are somewhere far away, and well, I've discussed this topic repeatedly. I don't know how to solve the problem, by the way. We have kind of many parties here. Maybe we, the market leaders, should kind of put forward some available solutions, affordable solutions to this small and medium businesses. I just have to share this with you. Okay, let's park this issue for the time being.
Да, мы обсудили, как
We have some other issues to discuss.
с подрядчиками, да, там NDA, соглашение.
We've discussed how we start working with contractors, NDA, contracts, whatever DLPs, EDRs will install if we can. But very rarely people talk about how you end the work with a contractor. Okay, you've done your deliverables. They have got your data. They can keep your data locally on-prem in their office. They can still be able to access your infrastructure. So what minimum should a company do to prevent
Возможные варианты утечек, либо
any leaks or unauthorized access?
завершены.
And again, the work has been done.
Заказчиков именно по
The project is over. So I would like to listen from
Если мы
the
предоставим
customers.
заказчику
Well,
структуру, ну,
it's
управление доступом,
it's really a good question. If we give access to our infrastructure, once the
мгновенно
interaction is over, then those
какое-то,
accounts should be disabled immediately.
что этого достаточно, да.
And if a process works well, we believe that should be sufficient. If we pass on our data outside, then it's more challenging. If it's about personal data, then according to our legislation,
ФЗ, мы
Law 152,
данные, то есть
if we
мы как оператор
pass on data officially, if we enter into an agreement and we pass on personal data to a contractor, then we should request them at any time how they implement the measures to handle them, how they store them, and how they delete them, how they get rid of them.
не знаю, ну запишите видео, например.
And we can ask them, and it is not regulated by the law, but we can ask them, can you please send a video of how you dispose of the data? That would give us enough evidence that you have deleted a certain offline database that we have given to you, and we'll be good, we'll be comfortable that you've done that. We'll ask for some substantiating documents, but then again, a
Но даже как бы записывать
disposal act they can sign, but whether they did it or not, you don't know. You just have a signed paper. Even if they show you a video, you wouldn't know if that is your hard drive or not. Or they would delete the data in such a way that they can recover it in 5 minutes. So it's a tough one.
работу с подрядчиком,
You've got to work with the contractor, you've got to
возможно, где-то совет.
talk to them, you've got to build a relationship. Perhaps you want to advise them at some point. We are knowledgeable in this, and we are in a position to advise how to best dispose of, how to delete, and what artifacts they could present to us to prove that. So there are levers that you can control.
Не должен это говорить.
And perhaps I shouldn't say that,
Наружу, да,
but I should proceed from an assumption that whatever you give outside, you should be aware
неконфиденциальная информация,
that
условно.
it ceases to be confidential at that point.
Что
You granted access to it to
в
someone.
целом осознавать, что какой срок у нее будет, не знаю, как правильное слово подобрать, ну, насколько она критично будет какое-то
And
определенное время. Вот, надо исходить из того, что
you've got to
и
really think
считаете риски,
for what period of time it's going to be critical. So once you give it away, you've got to calculate the risks. What happens if the information leaks? Yes, of course, you've got to have all the legal arrangements in place.
там, по уничтожению.
And yes, you might want to ask them to really dispose of the information, delete it. But there's a risk. Konstantin, Andrei, maybe there are some technical measures that you do to address this.
Возможно, какие-то технические мероприятия мы действительно...
Maybe yes, maybe we do some technical measures. We might.
Здесь добавить нечего. Вот,
Well, there's nothing to add here.
построенная
In my view,
да, вокруг работы с
a
подрядчиком.
well-designed environment of control around the work with the contractor.
Это до взаимодействия, то есть еще
Well, it starts even before the interaction starts. It starts at the time of contractor selection, even before we select a contractor, even at the time when we decide what it is that we want, when
направление
an initial idea of a product comes up.
работы вот этих всех контрольных процедур.
And so,
В конце
relying on all of these control and monitoring procedures, when you conclude or terminate the agreement,
выхлоп. Например,
you might
вот многие
count on a good outcome. Many people use NDA, but an NDA doesn't work, and you wouldn't be able to prove anything if you don't record the fact of passing on information, if you don't do that in a formal way.
оборудование
In addition to that, that's the return of the equipment, that's the disabling of accounts.
Я все.
Но мне
And that's all I have to say. Well, there's nothing I can add.
с коллегами полностью согласен.
I totally side with my colleagues.
С командой смотрели в эту сторону, поскольку
My team and myself, we looked at this recently because we are into
компания
internal information security.
услуги
Positive, as a company, offers services to our customers. We can get remote access, and we have computer security agreements, and we have NDAs,
мы все
pretty much as every other contractor. And we do all the preparation on our side, the contractor does preparation on their own side. So when a contract concludes or terminates,
инфраструктуру, с которой ходим к заказчику,
then we delete the infrastructure that we
заказчик
used to work with the contractor,
в блокировку.
but we don't know if the contractor blocked the accounts that provide access to our infrastructure.
Вот задумались как раз-таки
And so far, we can only give a recommendation, but have you thought of
везде заблокировать.
whether it could be implemented as a checklist that all accounts have been blocked?
Разработчик там не выложил
You check
не про позитив, а вообще
GitHub and see whether
проект закрывается
a developer didn't post some code that they shouldn't have
на GitHub.
out of
Вот.
the desire to brag, perhaps.
Такие рекомендации, они должны быть как в виде какого-то чек-листа.
And perhaps such recommendations could be put together or formulated into a checklist
Что думаете по этому?
that would govern digital hygiene.
Во все договоры.
Well, I can offer a commercial solution for you. You can include in all the contracts with contractors that you do post pen test. And if they don't delete what they should, then it's bad for them. Well, you are joking, but that's what we do. We do our own tools to make sure that all of their communications with us are disabled.
Ничего не стоит, просто чекаем по своим же хэшам файлики по этапу взаимодействия. Но это не все такие подрядчики зрелые.
But
Не то чтобы саморекламу, но так тоже можно.
yes, it is possible.
Потому что ансибловские пайпы того, как заказчик с вами работает, подрядчик с вами работает.
Sometimes
Можете запросить, посмотреть.
we can do it.
Да, и вот
And you can look up Ansible.
к этому вопросу
Okay, let's move on to the next question.
должен подрядчик должен.
We have been saying that a contractor must do this and that.
А если какие-нибудь, мы можем ли создать какие-нибудь меры, которые
Can we set up any measures
культуру безопасности
that could help create a security company, a security culture that involves the contractor?
заказчики, да, чтобы подрядчик приходил и говорил, слушайте, а
Have you had practice when a contractor comes to you and tells you, look,
не знаю, подрядчик у вас
you have a wrong configuration here, I don't know.
он сам приходит,
Say 1C ERP system is your contractor, and they would approach you and tell you, look, this is not okay in terms of security, and we recommend that you
понимает про информационный
modify here.
И вот как создать вот эту культуру, чтобы
So how do you create a culture
и заказчики начали
whereby all the contractors would approach you?
Ну, я могу поделиться несколькими примерами.
I can share a few examples
Вовлекаем
of
в
how we engage
культуру.
in the so-called cyber culture.
Проводился День открытых дверей для подрядчиков, где мы рассказывали,
We had
у нас функция информационной безопасности, чем занимаемся и так далее. То есть это, во-первых, показывает рынку, что мы не
Contractor Day,
там, живем своей жизнью, а мы, во-первых, открыты для встреч
demonstrating to the market that
и референсов.
we do not shy away from
Места, которые для нас
talking to contractors.
пытаемся как-то совместно с коллегами обсудить. Второе, мы имеем у себя на борту команду
We have also a team of pen testers
различные продукты
who look at
управлениями.
various products that are purchased by other business units.
Почему этот продукт не
And
безопасен?
we have an open dialogue. We
Выявлены уязвимости.
explain at length why a product is not safe and how to address the vulnerabilities. Number 3, our contracts for all contractors have the information security requirements, giving us the right to do an audit and with some penalties. I'm not saying fines, but with some penalties if there are
с которыми есть
incidents.
соглашение для проведения такого более детального аудита.
And we can hire one of the few companies with whom we have strategic agreements to do such an audit for us. Yes, I also wanted to chip in here. This brings us back to the first question about communicating or talking. And it is important to explain to contractors why these particular measures are important and how this would help them to develop their business and improve their products. And many value that, and indeed they make a better product and more secure product. But also, and I'll speak both a contractor and a customer, it's important when you are a customer to set reasonable requirements to a contractor, because quite often
Требования по информационной
I'm being shown other companies' requirements
все, что могут придумать.
in the field of information security, and they include everything conceivable. Recently, I saw a draft contract for a pen test, and the contract says that the contractor must use machines that are equipped with an antivirus and must not
Так и работаете.
take any illegal measures that could harm the customer, even though that's a pen test.
Заказчики и коммуницировать. И с другой стороны, не брать все, что мы могли придумать. не
So
включать документ,
you've got to really help the contractor, but you shouldn't go to the extreme and including all conceivable requirements.
Тест.
Yes, I'm amazed that they didn't have a requirements that the computer to do a pen test had to be provided by the customer.
В детали информационной безопасности гражданские. Вовлекать их в эту культуру. Моя мечта вообще была бы вот
You want to engage people in this culture. My dream is that, in elevators, we have safety rules in every elevator. Hopefully, someday we'll live to see that there are information security rules next to those. And so you take baby steps. No, but then no one reads the safety rules in the lift. Who did read safety rules in the lift?
Передам задумку.
Okay, I'll pass on this idea to the organizers.
Да, друзья, у нас осталось совсем немного времени.
Okay, friends, our time is running out,
Перейти к теме вопросы-ответы.
and I suggest we
Вопрос.
go to the Q&A.
Обычный человек с микрофоном.
You will be given a microphone.
Добрый день, спасибо большое
Good afternoon.
за плодотворную дискуссию.
Thank you for a very
Такого плана
insightful panel.
стандартов. То есть
I have a question. We have many standards. We have GOST, we have stack requirements,
народку они, наверное, живут по ISO, и если говорить
whereas the international community uses ISO. And in the area of security, that's
можем доверять,
most likely NIST framework. Do you think we will ever have a single standard that we all
меня интересует
share,
ваше
whereby
ну, на уровне
you could approach
будет достаточно.
a customer and say, contractor and say, look, I want you to have a maturity of 3
Мы как раз
for me to trust you.
там, провести дискуссию, мы собирались.
Before the panel,
Да,
we sat down and discussed
стандарты внедрить, но
whether we could implement any standards.
стандарт он должен ко всем применяться. Да.
But a standard should apply to everyone,
Подрядчику.
both to a large contractor and
У него коммерческий сок, у него
it's not a problem. You can ask that they have a commercial stock and that they have certain products. But what about small sole traders with websites? Because we're being breached through websites. If you tell them about standards, they would respond that, okay, I'm developing websites and I'll continue to do so without your standards.
меня, конечно, не поддерживает.
I had an idea. Not all of my colleagues support me. But what if
Он выкладывает, выставляет
a contractor
программу там, кибериспытаний, баг-баунти. Ну, то есть, неважно, на какую платформу,
would
просто что вот он есть,
make them
да, его кто-то может
the target for a bug bounty?
платит, у него там 10 тысяч рублей, грубо говоря, весь фонд. Но ты хотя бы смотришь на такого товарища, такой, наверное, он что-то хотя бы делает. Ну вот.
Ну, тут ты вставил.
Maybe that would be
Мне кажется, ответ на ваш вопрос – да.
at least something.
Дать немножко времени.
I think the answer to a question is yes. I think we should give just more time. And who do you think should push this? Should it be the business or the government? I think, as in any other industry,
В областях делает государство,
the first step in a resource-intensive industry is done by the government.
входит бизнес и начинает делать уже эффективный процесс.
And then the business follows and starts building effective processes.
Добрый день.
Good afternoon.
У меня такой вопрос. В экономической безопасности
My question is this. In economic security, you have
процедура должной осмотрительности, да?
a KYC procedure.
Была налоговая. Что
And
подрядчик
I understand that
вы все равно за него выплатите.
it is initiated by the tax authority, because if a contractor goes bankrupt, you will pay that for them. Well, if we did something like that in the area of information security, how do you think it could look like? Well, I think we're a couple of years away.
Рейтинг ну, просто оценки контрагента.
I think that cyber resilience could simply be included in the overall counterparty
Проверяемость финансов.
ranking. We are now doing a review of counterparties' financials. I think that we are only a few years away from also adding some cyber component to it,
Я думаю,
some top-level assessments of their cybersecurity level. I think we're quite close to that.
Все вопросы, как будто у нас какой-то регуляторный трек.
It seems that we have a regulatory track, judging by the nature of questions. You said that you don't like contractors, they're not secure. Let's have just one contractor and sell them security services. But have there been such instances in reality?
Нет, такого не будет.
A single contractor? No, I don't think we'll ever have it.
Может быть, когда вот все требования вот эти ведут, и тогда
It may be the case when all of these requirements are implemented, and then the person who builds a website for you for 50,000,
условно.
the same website will be built for you by a large integrator for $1 million.
Баланс вот этих вот всех требований,
What matters is to have a balance of all of these requirements.
новые регуляторные требования, все же понимают, да, что это будет.
The balance is important. There will be new regulatory requirements, and everyone understands that that would narrow down the market. Only the large organizations will survive. Sole traders would not be able to do that.
Что, ну, вот ИПшники, да, у которых там маржа,
Sole traders, small and micro companies, have very
выполнить какие-то
little margin. And if we ask them to comply with some requirements,
из жизни
even to sign papers, to give you
по обработке
a real-life example,
законодательства,
we ask them to sign a certain mandatory document,
вы мне за месяц платите,
and they tell us that you pay me 20,000 rubles per month.
у меня юриста нет. Я
I
сейчас
don't have a lawyer.
фирму,
I would have to go and find a legal firm,
проверку, чтобы он мне рекомендации дал, там, не наврали ли вы или что-то.
and
Трачу 10 тысяч.
I will spend 10,000 just to check that what you are asking me is not something that I'm doing against
Скорее всего, там, условно сделают
my benefit.
документы, я им поверю на слово. Вот такие ситуации. Спасибо.
Да, добрый день.
Good afternoon.
Спасибо за дискуссию, очень интересная тема.
Thank you for the panel, a very interesting topic.
Есть такой вопрос. Предположим,
A question
разрабатывает некое решение,
from the contractor's side. Say a contractor develops a solution,
и там на этапе
and they have a code repository, and
составляет отчет и даст анализ.
as they submit their deliverables, they provide the test and test analysis results of their code repository. How do you think it increases their security? Does it work in their favor? Well, if they know the words, that already works in their favor. Because when you ask them, have you done code analysis? And they ask, what? We have seen a developer. They looked at the code and they say it's okay. So that's how quality control looks for them.
Если они дадут отчеты, в которых написано,
Well, if they have done that review, if they
это уже
will give us reports that show that it's okay, it's a good step forward.
Мы еще внутри посмотрим.
Yes, it's great, but we'll certainly do our own review. We also have such tools.
Вот, Слав, как раз-таки хочется, чтобы были такие отношения доверительные.
Well, it would be good to have such relationship of trust with the contractor, so that you formulated the requirements, and said that this is what I need for my company. We can discuss, but this is roughly what I need. And they will appreciate that there's information security and
Такой, «Всё,
there might be risks.
это здорово, у меня к такому подрядчику будет».
If a contractor
Все так.
knows the word SAST and DAST, I would have maximum trust in such a contractor. Yes, but such things do happen. There are some mature contractors who, at the early stage, ask, and please, can you set up a meeting with your security so that we understood your requirements? Just recently, I had a contractor who, even before the project, started talking about security. On the other hand,
Не хватает в безопасности.
there are contractors.
Приходят и говорят, смотрите, ребят, мы сделали, и мы еще вот здесь.
We tell them what they're lacking in security and then come back then and tell us, look, we have changed our processes and please can you tell us what more we can do? And the communication starts and this communication creates trust.
Вот мы говорим здесь со стороны Б.
Okay,
Все понимаем, что
we talk from the viewpoint of security and we understand that we should ensure
особенно не когда крупный какой-то проект.
contractor security. How do we communicate it to the business? The business says that I want to develop an MVP
5-6 подрядчиков.
and they conduct a tender among 5 or 6 contractors and none of them know about security and the business is not prepared to pay
Миллиона вырастет до 10.
to validate a hypothesis that would increase the value of their contract from 1 million to 10. How do you address that? Well, it's education. It is our job and something that we don't do awfully well.
С бизнесом рассказывать.
As CISO, we've got to talk to the business, we've got to educate them. I think
22 года
the problem was
готовы как раз за это платить.
more challenging before 2022. Now companies are more prepared to pay because there have been many adverse examples. And I think it's my bad. If my business doesn't understand that in today's world information security matters are critical, then I'm not paying enough attention to that. I should be doing a better job communicating the risks to them.
Все, друзья, у нас
Okay,
кончилось время.
we have run out of time. Thank you very much.